Beyond the Gates spoilers for Wednesday, March 18, reveal that in Fairmont Crest, disaster rarely begins with a scream. It usually starts in silence, in the pause before bad news is spoken aloud, in the tightening of a jaw across a dinner table, in the faint sense that something familiar has begun to rot beneath its polished surface. This town has always depended on appearances. Elegant homes, carefully rehearsed manners, and old money have long created the illusion that chaos can be managed if it is kept behind closed doors. But the illusion is wearing thin now. The pressure is building in too many places at once, and every family seems to be guarding a wound that is only getting harder to hide. What is coming next will not arrive as one clean scandal. It will come as a chain reaction of resentment, betrayal, pride, and grief, pulling one person after another into conflicts they can no longer contain. The most dangerous part is that each of them still believes they can control the damage, even as they stand on the edge of choices that could tear their lives apart. The next wave of turmoil begins, as so much in this town does, with Leslie. Her grotesque construction project has already become a symbol of everything invasive, vulgar, and exhausting about her presence in Fairmont Crest. It was never just an eccentric house or an ugly inconvenience. It became a daily assault on Anita and Vernon, a loud, relentless reminder that Leslie does not recognize boundaries unless she is forced to. The noise, the disruption, the arrogance of building such a monstrosity while Anita struggles with her health has transformed Leslie from an annoying neighbor into a living source of stress and hostility. Now that construction is on the verge of being halted, Leslie is not capable of seeing the situation as the natural consequence of her own recklessness. She sees herself as cornered, humiliated, and targeted. That is what makes her so dangerous. The more trapped she feels, the more vicious she becomes. Leslie does not retreat when she loses ground. She lashes out, and she does it with the kind of determination that turns every setback into a personal war. That is why her next move could be the most volatile one yet. Forced into a position she hates, Leslie may have no choice but to go to Vernon and ask for help. For a woman like her, that is not a simple act of desperation. It is an insult to her pride, a humiliation she will never forgive, and that humiliation will poison every word she says. She will not come to Vernon with real humility or remorse. She will come armed with bitterness, trying to disguise a plea as a negotiation, trying to preserve her sense of power, even while she admits she needs something from the very man she has spent so much time provoking. Vernon, meanwhile, will immediately understand what is happening. He knows Leslie too well to mistake this for sincerity. He knows she is not asking for peace. She is trying to survive, and if she survives, she will almost certainly go back to making everyone around her miserable. That awareness places Vernon in a brutal position. If he refuses her outright, he risks pushing her into a deeper spiral, one that could make life even harder for Anita. If he gives an inch, he sends Leslie the message that she can create enough chaos to eventually force people to bend. Either choice comes with consequences, and Vernon will feel the weight of that choice more intensely than ever, because Anita no longer has the strength to endure endless conflict. Anita's illness has changed the emotional balance of everything around her. It has made Vernon more protective, less patient, and less willing to tolerate nonsense from anyone. He no longer sees Leslie as a nuisance. He sees her as a threat to Anita's peace, and that makes every interaction sharper, more personal, more loaded with anger. Yet Anita's condition has also stripped away the luxury of easy moral certainty. She is tired, vulnerable, and increasingly unable to act as the emotional buffer she once was for the family. Her weakness frightens Vernon because it leaves him with a role he never wanted to play alone, the one who must decide how hard to fight and how much damage he is willing to risk in order to protect the woman he loves. In that state, even a practical dispute about permits or property lines becomes something raw and dangerous. Vernon's rage will not come from ego alone. It will come from helplessness, from watching Anita suffer, from feeling that every ugly thing Leslie does lands too close to home at a moment when home is already fragile. At the same time, another storm is gathering around Bill and Anita, and this one may be quieter on the surface but far more emotionally brutal underneath. Their coming conversation is unlikely to be a simple exchange of concern or reconciliation. It will be one of those painful reckonings that both people know they have postponed for too long. Bill is not walking into that conversation as a calm, detached observer. He is carrying old frustration, bruised pride, and the growing sense that he is being forced to account for things in a season when no one around him is willing to make room for his own confusion or pain. He knows Anita is unwell. He knows this is not the time for carelessness, selfishness, or emotional games. But he also knows that too many truths have been swallowed in the name of keeping peace, and now those unspoken truths are turning poisonous. Bill's greatest weakness has always been his inability to separate genuine feeling from wounded ego. That weakness will be on full display here. Part of him will want to reach Anita honestly, to say what he has failed to say before. Another part of him will resent the fact that he always seems to arrive at these moments already judged, already expected to carry blame, already pushed into the position of defending himself before he even opens his mouth. Anita, however, is no longer in a place where she can soften reality for anyone else. Illness has a cruel way of stripping away social performance, and Anita may finally be too exhausted to protect other people from the truth. She has spent too much of her life holding families together, absorbing tension, managing personalities, and preserving dignity in rooms full of wounded pride. Now she has less energy for compromise, less tolerance for old patterns, and less interest in pretending that hurt can be erased by polite restraint. Whatever passes between her and Bill is likely to cut deeply because it will not only be about the present. It will carry years of disappointment, choices that cannot be undone, and the bitter recognition that some relationships are damaged not by one unforgivable act, but by 1,000 smaller failures to listen, to value, to show up in the right way at the right time. Bill may leave that conversation angrier than he arrived, but it will not be the anger of a man who feels misunderstood. It will be the anger of a man who realizes that some doors do not stay open forever, and that regret becomes much heavier when someone you love is too worn down to keep giving you chances. While those emotional confrontations build, Joey is moving through town with the kind of calculated calm that should make everyone nervous. When someone seeks his blessing, Joey chooses to give it, but that choice is not as generous as it appears. Joey understands power better than most people around him. He knows that there are moments when forbidding something only creates resistance, while allowing it can create dependency, guilt, and a false sense of security. His blessing is not surrender, it is strategy. By appearing supportive, he places himself above the conflict, as though he is the reasonable man in the room, the one too mature to interfere. But beneath that composure is the quiet satisfaction of a person who knows his approval still matters. He does not need to dominate openly if he can remain the invisible force people keep circling back to. That is what makes Joey so unsettling. He rarely needs to raise his voice. He exerts control by making others feel watched, measured, and subtly indebted. Anyone who mistakes his approval for innocence is likely to realize too late that they have walked deeper into his sphere of influence than they intended. Vanessa is among those standing at a dangerous crossroads because she is tired enough to seek clarity but still emotionally entangled enough to fear what clarity will cost her. Her decision to turn to Nicole for advice is not casual. It comes from a place of real weariness, the kind that develops when a woman has been strong for too long inside a relationship that keeps draining her. Vanessa does not need flattery or comforting lies. She needs someone who will look at her life without sentimentality and tell her what she already suspects but keeps postponing. Nicole is uniquely positioned to do that, because she understands emotional compromise all too well. She understands what it means to stay in situations long after the warning signs have become impossible to ignore. She understands the private humiliation of trying to convince yourself that what hurts you is still worth defending. That is why the conversation between Nicole and Vanessa could become one of the sharpest emotional turns in town. Nicole may offer the kind of advice that sounds simple on the surface, but lands like a blade. That a man who leaves a woman constantly uncertain about her worth, her safety, or her future is not confusion to be solved, but damage to be escaped. For Vanessa, hearing that truth may be both liberating and devastating. For Nicole, speaking it aloud may force her to confront the uncomfortable possibility that she is wiser about everyone else's life than she has ever been about her own. That is where Kiel enters as the unexpected spark in an already unstable landscape. Whatever he does next is unlikely to be minor. The fact that his coming move is being framed as something no one saw coming suggests that he has reached a point where patience has curdled into resolve. Kiel has spent too much time being underestimated, too much time trying to act mature while everyone around him behaves according to their own emotional chaos. He has likely been asked, directly or indirectly, to accept uncertainty, mixed signals, and emotional leftovers with grace. That kind of pressure wears down even the most composed person. If Kiel finally makes a bold choice, it will not come out of nowhere. It will come from accumulated disappointment, from the painful realization that dignity sometimes requires a dramatic break rather than another quiet compromise. Whether that move is a public declaration, a withdrawal no one expected, or a decision that throws Nicole and others off balance, It will matter, because it will force everyone to stop treating him like a secondary figure in someone else's emotional crisis. He may be about to remind them that the people asked to wait the longest often become the ones most capable of detonating what others assumed would hold. Nicole will find herself at the center of more tension than she wants to admit. Giving advice to Vanessa may make her look composed, almost authoritative, but emotional intelligence does not guarantee emotional peace. In fact, the cruel irony of Nicole's position is that she may see everyone else's traps more clearly than her own. She can identify control, fear, dependency, and self-deception when they happen in other people's relationships, yet still remain entangled in her own unresolved pain. Kial's unexpected action could expose that contradiction in a way she cannot avoid. If he chooses himself over the confusion surrounding her, Nicole may be forced to face the cost of hesitation, the pain of realizing that indecision can wound just as deeply as betrayal. She will not only have to process what he has done, she will have to reckon with what her own uncertainty has done to him. That kind of reckoning is especially painful for a woman who has spent so much time trying to remain careful, reasonable, and fair. Sometimes being careful only delays the moment when someone else decides they have suffered enough. What makes the coming stretch in Beyond the Gates so compelling is not merely the number of conflicts unfolding at once. It is the way those conflicts feed each other, creating the sense that the entire town is tightening like a wire about to snap. Leslie's desperation fuels Vernon's anger. Vernon's anger grows because Anita is weakening. Anita's vulnerability makes every family conversation feel urgent and dangerous. Bill, already burdened by history and ego, is pulled into a reckoning he may not be emotionally prepared for. Joey continues to operate behind a mask of reason while tightening his hold through subtle manipulation. Vanessa seeks Nicole's guidance because she can no longer bear the emotional uncertainty of her situation. Nicole, in trying to help someone else, becomes more exposed to the contradictions in her own life. Kial, who may have been overlooked for too long, prepares to make a move that could alter the emotional balance around all of them. There is no easy hero in this phase of the story, and that is exactly what gives it force. Everyone is acting from some mixture of fear, pride, love, frustration, and self-protection. Leslie may be outrageous, but outrage often becomes most dangerous when it grows out of humiliation. Vernon may be justified, but righteousness can still become destructive when it is sharpened by helplessness. Bill may have genuine feelings, but sincerity does not erase the damage caused by ego and bad timing. Joey may look composed, but calm can be its own form of menace when it hides strategic control. Vanessa may want peace, but peace sometimes requires a painful rupture first. Nicole may offer wisdom, but wisdom spoken to others can become unbearable when it echoes back toward the self. Kiel may shock everyone, but shock is often what happens when someone has been silently pushed past his limit. That is why the drama ahead will not feel random or exaggerated. It will feel earned. It will come from pressure points that have been building for too long, from people who are tired of swallowing anger, tired of waiting for respect, tired of pretending that damage can be managed without consequence. In a town built on appearances, the next set of cracks may finally become impossible to hide. And once that happens, the real question will no longer be who can keep the peace. It will be who is willing to destroy it first in order to survive.